Hey there.
Welcome, Amsterdam. Boy, we are so excited to be here. I mean, a keynote in our hometown, that's great, right? First of all, I would like to thank the Awwwards organization for having us. We are very grateful to be standing here. And creative communities like Awwwards are so important for the advancement of our craft. Today's the society we live in is changing, and that's because of technology. And we love to give our take today on this topic. My name is Joël Van Bodegraven. I know my last name is hard to pronounce. I'm a product designer at Adyen.
And I'm Pedro Marques. I'm also a product designer at Adyen, working in machine learning for about 2 years now. And this is what we come here to talk about to you today. We want to talk about the impact that machine learning will have, and it already has, on the UX, and also the other way around.
Yeah, and we're also going to talk about the role of design and development, because with the advancement of technology, also our roles of creatives and designers are changing. I mean, in the early days, we had full control over the entire flow, but we're becoming more and more like designers of the framework and the system of the experience. So this means that a lot of stuff is going to be automated. And we see that already with the dawn of anticipatory design, for example. And this is really like shifting the role, but also creating a better focus for code, because code has always been that invisible part of a journey that really matters. And with those automated experiences, code has become a UX decision as well. Now, first, let's go back and let's dive into the world of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so when we talk about technology shaping the user experience, AI plays a huge role in it. But I would just like to talk a little bit of what it actually is. Because AI is kind of becoming this umbrella term like the cloud, or like, because nobody kind of knows what it is, and everybody talks about it. And I would like to start from what AI isn't. AI isn't the cookie monster. It's not going to come and take your jobs away. I hope so. AI, if you're hearing, please. It's not going to take our jobs away. And I would also like to talk that I hate the term artificial intelligence. And I'm not the only one. A lot of people on the field also don't like the term because it has some weird connotations that, like, first, it kind of assumes that, the clicker? Yeah, kind of assumes that we know what intelligence is. So to start talking about artificial intelligence, we need to talk about intelligence. So what is intelligence? Well, for me, at least, intelligence is about self-awareness. It's about planning, and it's about problem solving. So when you think about it, if I ask you the question,
Yeah, the clicker is not very supportive today.
Yeah, the question. Can you move for me? If I ask you the question, is a plant intelligent? Who thinks a plant is intelligent? Raise your hand for me. Oh my God, there's people upstairs. Oh, Jesus.
I hope there are not plants in the room.
Yeah, sorry, there's a plant here. I'm very sorry. So we all kind of have like plants at home, you know, like your house plant over there. I mean, if you don't think your plant is intelligent, I'm sorry you have a dumb plant, but my plant is very intelligent. So I have a kind of hard time keeping her alive, and then it would be there sitting by the window, and one day I looked, and all the leaves were kind of leaning towards where the light was. And I was like, what you doing? I don't know what you're doing. And then I realized that one of the leaves actually had light from the window touching it, so it was kind of trying to put all the other leaves under that light. So in that sense, there's planning, there is self-awareness, and sometimes you see those other plants that climb into places to reach where the light is. There's also shaping its own environment for its benefit. So if I ask you again, do you think a plant is intelligent? Yes? Raise your hand if you think. I still see some hands down, and that's part of the problem. So when we talk about intelligence, intelligence is already hard enough to define. And if we cannot agree on what intelligence is, how do we want to build an artificial one? It's kind of hard, right? So whenever we're talking about AI, AI is more like a goal. AI is a goal of having machines perform specific tasks, of exhibit some form of intelligence. AI, it's not a scientific field, it's not science per se, it's just a goal. In the 50s, John McCarthy, the guy who coined the term AI, he says this: as soon as it works, no one calls it AI anymore. And I find it fantastic. And if you look back on '96, when IBM had the Deep Blue computer that beat the first time that it beat the world's best chess player, it was crazy. People went nuts. They were like, shit, that's gonna take over the world. But then right afterwards, they're like, oh no, it's just a good algorithm. And then 2 years ago, Google thing called AlphaGo beat the world's best Go player. And then a few days later, everyone was very quick to dismiss that's not AI. So AI is this moving flag, this moving finish flag in a race where you're never gonna reach it. Because every time we get there, we just go and like, oh, actually, this is not it. This is not it. This is the next thing. So whenever you see someone talking about AI, they're actually talking about, not that, go back.
Thanks, clicker.
About machine learning. So I heard there's this really good quote that if it's in code and working is machine learning, if it's on a slide deck is AI. So it's like, I think it's really my favorite. I don't know, I saw it on Twitter or something. But it's machine learning. But what this is, we hear a lot of fuzz about it and yada yada. So machine learning at its core is just an algorithm that learns by itself. The way machine learning differs from conventional programming is that instead of writing the software, all the instructions and ifs, and else's, and so on, you give it the actual result and you let it figure out how it can predict other results. So you start from the end. And every time there's an input, there's an output, and the output would also train the thing that's coming up with the output. And that's the main difference on it. And for us designers, a conversation is different. We shouldn't talk about how it works and how many features it has and this and this and that. We should talk about the usefulness. We should talk about how we can make use of it in our day-to-day lives. And that's the opposite of how data scientists and developers approach it. They approach it mostly from the research perspective, on the technological research perspective, where, hey, I can build this, so I'm going to build it. This is cool to build, not useful, but we're going to build it. For us, it should be different. And this noise on what is useful or not makes it really hard to separate the conversations worth having and the conversations worth having and the conversations that shouldn't matter.
Yeah, because if you look at the industry, there's a lot of, thanks clicker again. If you look at like the industry and like all the articles around AI and machine learning, it's a hot topic, but people are also really talking about like and writing about in extremes. I think it's really important for the advancement of this technology that we not only like are worried about AI taking over our jobs, but that we really see what it is and how we can elevate and use technology for the good of our users. Because in the end, we are the guardians of the users. And one of the roles that AI can really play here is like the director role. We all know, we all have a director in our company who has like a know-how about the profile of the users, about what actions to prompt, when and how, and knows like has all those insights and the go-to guy for advice for a great UX. This is something machine learning can really help you with, and this is something Netflix also applies a lot. And we brought a case here that's about the Netflix artwork personalization, and we really like this idea because everyone, like, I mean, who watches Netflix? I mean, there's like everyone, right? And you see the artworks every day, but an artwork now is not much appealing. But when you apply artwork, then it becomes really like, then it triggers. But what some of you might not know is that all the artwork you see on Netflix is personalized based on your viewing behavior. So, for example, what's wrong with this clicker, guys? Who's clicking? So, for example, Pedro is into romantic comedies, and I'm more a comedy guy. So, you see that based on our viewing history, Netflix has a different artwork for us that appeals better.
And yes, I'm making that question, actually not making that question. The good old Twitter conversation of should designer code comes back with the new villain, which is machine learning. Well, I'm not going to answer that question because I think we're adults, and you figure out what you want to learn or not. But understanding the medium that we work on, is very important for the development of it. So there's something that comes with any kind of change. Whenever some new technological advancement happens, there's something that always comes with it, and those are questions and problems and trying to see where it breaks. And this is kind of where we are with machine learning. That's why if you open, I can make a challenge. You can open any news website, like tech news website, and just like comment F for AI, there will be an article on the homepage. Because we are in this tipping moment where we're trying to see where it breaks and seeing like if it's actually useful. Do you guys remember responsive design? Who remembers it? Yeah, everyone, right?
That was a hot topic.
Yeah, it
was a hot topic.
It was crazy. Like, I think 4 or 5 years ago, it was everywhere. It was like, I'm pretty sure you all read like a job post like, oh, X years of experience and yada yada, and you need to know a responsive design. You need to know mobile first. You need to know content first, and blah, 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 all these things. But then, what came a lot with it were those kind of questions. So I don't know, what about columns? Do we have different column organization? What should we design first? Mobile first? Where are my users? I don't know, should it be like also available in a watch? Should it be available in that weird 300 by 200 Android phone that for some reason people buy? That should those things be available there?
Our lives were easy.
Oh, well, yeah, we're not easy. But then you don't hear a lot about it anymore. On the job descriptions, or whatever employer kind of assumes that you know that, right? Because especially nowadays that we're past the tipping point of mobile, where for most websites, more than 50% of their traffic comes from mobile, it's not a question. The question is not on the table anymore. What it is how are we going to fix it? So in that note, what about machine learning? What happens to it? Where are we? Why are we talking about this in a creative and designer conference? Because in the end, just like responsive design was, machine learning is just another UX problem, another one that we have to solve.
And most important, it's our challenge. Yeah, I was thinking of this. My clicker goes like 2 times. AI. So most importantly, machine learning is our problem. Everyone in this hall is currently creating like products, services, creative products. And we are living now in a different like reality, a data-centric community that is really like engineered focused and data focused. And we have a responsibility to ourselves to create like meaningful but also ethical products for the user. Because what we make represents who we are, what values we stand for. So I think in that regard, it's really important, and I think that you all here is a good signal that you're interested in this topic, that we dive more into the topic of machine learning and get to a level where we all speak the same language. That will make creative collaboration much better and much easier and make our products even better. And this will require like a different kind of thinking. So we are currently really like UI focused and mobile centric often, but we should like always use technology as a method and not as a goal or a purpose. So our roles are evolving with the advancement of the technology, and this comes with some design challenges.
Yeah, when I was talking about the responsive design and all that, those questions, they had something in common, like about the weird Android thing. They have something in common. They become challenges for us to solve, and only for us because we're the superheroes. And actually, no. But they become things that we have to care about and we have to fix in order to have a good product for our users. So what we would like to do now, we will go over some design challenges that this technology brings, some of that we faced, and we can share a little bit of how we approached it. But what I don't want to do is come up saying, here are 10 things you should do when designing machine learning products. I don't want to do that because we designers, we know that problems are contextual. But one thing that always happens among all these problems is that sometimes we have to ask the same questions. So this is more about questions and less about the solutions. I'd like to start with my favorite one, which is trust. In this data-centric world, as Joël put, we have our data is spread everywhere. Facebook has a shit ton of it. And, Facebook has a lot of it, and Google has a lot of it. Everyone has a piece of it. And whenever you're with an organization, you're using a product, if you don't even trust having your data with them, would you trust what would they do with your data? Or what would they present you or recommend you based on your data? Maybe not. I'd like to highlight this one, and also say props, because Facebook, they fixed this afterwards and apologized and so on, but it's worth reminding. This was their year in review in 2014-15. If I'm not mistaken, was the first year that they did it, and what they did was they put this post on top of your feed that showed a post that was only available to you, and you could choose to share. But what they did here, they ran some model somewhere, they came up with the result, and they splashed it on my face, and that's it. In Mark's case, and a lot of other people's cases, what happened was they saw things that they didn't want to see. They were probably measuring like engagement or something on the photo that they picked, but then engagement is a very weak metric. And in this case, it showed Mark's dad's father's ashes. I'm pretty sure that was not the highlight, or at least not the good highlight of his year, right? That's a bad way to do. Can we blame the model for doing this? No, because the model itself and technology itself is heartless, but we're not. We're designers. Here, we can maybe blame the designer for not making it optional, an opt-in thing instead of an opt-out. Maybe that's a design and a product decision. And this is where we can play a huge role on this technology and how we show these things to people. In this year, Eric Meyer, he writes like books about UX and design. He had a quote that I take with me like forever, which is, I wasn't looking for grief today, but designers and developers but I found it, and I have designers and developers to blame for it. So it's deep, it's hard, and this is something that we can fix, and if we think about it, and if we choose to fix it.
So, so the same applies a bit like transparency. There goes my clicker again. Transparency also like builds trust, and with transparency, there's also not a right or a wrong, but machine learning can be a bit of a black box for users. I mean, a lot of times, especially on YouTube, I bet a lot of people get it as well, that once you watch a video, you see a lot of different videos that are extremes of that content. Now, transparency is also like, in that case, a UX decision in the code to decide whether you should be transparent, and if so, how much.
Another one that's very important is the sense of control. When you're talking about sense of control, is that we're getting more and more aware that people are using our data to recommend us something, or sometimes the products are being transparent on telling you that they're recommending you something because of different things. But now that I see the output, do I have visibility on the input that generates the output? Do I have control over that? Should I have control over that? Should I offer this on my product or not? We put up the Tesla example because I like it's a good metaphor in a way, because they're still not like 100% like self-driving cars and so on, but they're slowly introducing this and building this trust over time. So whenever Elon Musk wakes up like, oh, I found it, and then now we have self-driving cars. For the path that you take on building that trust and giving this sense of control and slowly maybe taking it back, that's when you build a trust, and someone will completely trust on the output of whatever you're doing with them that's based on a system.
So we live in a world that's too noisy. We make about 25,000 subliminal decisions a day. A lot around food. You can experience that by the end of the day, that you're thinking about snacking if you're tired. And this noisy world is because technology asks our attention. We have Slack, we have our Apple Watch, we have WhatsApp. There's a lot of stuff going on. And one of the design challenges is to design for less choice, to use machine learning to predict the next step. Nest does it brilliantly, but we should rethink also other products where we can predict the next step of the user, so they have less to think about and more to enjoy.
On that note of the decision fatigue, There's a thing in machine learning called confusion matrix. It's basically analyzing the outputs of a model. And you can kind of translate that to what some people call like an edge case, which I don't like to call that. I like to call it a stress case because you just need to stress a little bit over it to fix it. Is this. So basically, whenever you have an output from a model, you can have 4 outputs. You can have a true positive, a true negative, or a false positive and a false negative. They're all they're equally bad and good, I'd say. Because if you present someone something, your model might be like, oh, that is the thing. This is 98% right. Well, that 2% still counts. And even if the model thinks that, it might not have a bunch of context. So you always need to design with failure in mind. Always need to have a way to give the user control back. For example, I was working at Booking.com before Adyen, and I was working on recommendation and ranking systems. As you're browsing, I could be like really sure that you want that specific room in that hotel is the one that you want. I know that. But if I just like remove all the other ones and only show you this one, if it's right, if it's a true positive, it's great. But then if I'm not right, what happens? You're not gonna find what you want, and everybody's gonna be sad about that in the end. So designing with failure in mind is very, very important when you're dealing with these, especially when you're dealing with something more sensitive. There's a lot of applications for machine learning in the health department nowadays, like identifying skin cancer with the camera, because that's a very visual process, and machines are great at that. But what happens if you tell someone, like, hey, you have cancer, but they don't have? You might ruin that person's life we don't know what they're going to do with that information. So designing for this failure is very, very important. It's something that we need to keep in mind. And whenever you're working with machine learning, this is going to end up in your Jira board because you have to design for all these outcomes.
And so Pedro and I are very curious, and we want to learn everything that has to do around new technologies. And it's so important to stay curious and have that research mind and invest in learning about new technologies.
Yeah, when we designers, and I say we, I'm generalizing, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not like that. We designers, we have more of this research mentality in mind, where we start from a problem, we talk to users, we find a solution, we find a problem, then we work on a solution. But the way it works now with the development of machine learning is that they're starting from a possibility of doing something and then trying to find a problem that solution would fit in. That's not always the case. And that's where if we have a shared lingo, a shared language to talk to data scientists, to machine learning engineers, we can have a better conversation, and we can be part of not just the development of, not just the design of it in a specific product, but with the development of the entire feud. There are hundreds of discussions to have on this topic. There are ethical things we think about, forgot the word. There are ethical implications. There are a bunch of other implications, and there are a lot of people writing about it. And like I said, we're in the tipping point. There are a lot of people writing about it, including us. Yep. We have an ebook coming up with Awwwards, calling Training AI with Design. It's free, it's all there, and that's also the very good part of this community, because it's very much rooted on open source. So it's just all there. It's just a matter of knowing how to find it. And we're here to try to plant this seed, this curiosity in your mind, so we can push the field forward and push the technology forward and put the user in the middle of that discussion, because in the end, we have to advocate for them, because that's our passion, that's how we work.
Yeah, and the point is, we are all here not to just solve the problems, right? We are here to design the future. We are here to develop the technology further. So I hope we've challenged your mind a bit and sparked your curiosity, and we would like to thank you. So thanks, Amsterdam.
Thank you.